Please raise your right hand. Sergeant Andrew L. Colburn, called as a witness herein, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. The clerk, please be seated. Please state your name. Spell your last name for the record. The witness, Andrew L. Colburn, Colborn. Direct examination by Attorney Buting. Question. Sergeant, how are you employed? Answer. I'm a patrol supervisor with the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department. And how long have you been so employed? 14 years. As a police officer, you say? As a corrections officer until 1996. I have been a police officer since 96. Okay, and how long have you been a sergeant? Since 2002. Okay, and on November 5th of 2005, were you so employed? Yes, sir. And did you become involved in a Teresa Halbach matter? Yes, I did. And what date was that? On Saturday, I believe it was the 3rd of November. Could that have been Thursday, November 3rd? Yes, sorry, Thursday, November 3rd. Okay. That was my initial involvement. And you received a phone call from somebody at Calumet? Yes, sir. Advising you that there was a missing person investigation? Yes, sir. And were you asked to do something in your jurisdiction in Manitowoc? Yes. The officer that called from Calumet asked if we could send a deputy or if I could go out to the Avery auto salvage area and check to see if that young lady was there. And that was that very same evening, November 3rd, is what they wanted you to do, right? Yes, sir. And so, did you do so? Yes, I went out there personally. You did? Yes. Okay, and the name Stephen Avery was mentioned to you, is that right? No. When I was contacted, I was just told that the last address that she had been at, they thought, was an address on Avery Road. I didn't know of any other residences on Avery Road, but the Avery auto salvage area. Okay, and so you went out there. Did you see Stephen Avery? Yes. And he was somebody that you were familiar with, right? Not real familiar with, but I knew who Steve was by sight. Well, and you knew his involvement with your department as well, right? Yes. In fact, you had been deposed in his civil case just 3 weeks earlier, right? Yes. Attorney Fallon. Objection. Relevance. The court. Mr. Buting. Attorney Buting. I will move on. Question by Attorney Buting. When did you find Mr. Avery at home or outside the trailer, or tell me what happened? Probably the two. The two Averys that I'm most familiar with are Charles and Earl. I knew Earl doesn't live out there, so the idea in my head was to make contact with Charles. And so I drove directly towards where I knew Charles lived, which is in close proximity to the shop building. Got out of my squad, and before I could get to Charles's residence, Steve came out of his parents' home and asked what I was doing. Okay, and so what did you tell him? The court. Excuse me, I have a question here. I think this testimony is for the multiple execution of the warrant section. Is this testimony necessary for purposes of this motion? Attorney Buting. If it's whether it's an entry or not, I don't know whether he went into the residence at that time or not. It could be. Attorney Fallon. But what relevance is that in terms of once a warrant is obtained, whether it was properly executed? The court. Right. Attorney Buting. Well, it relates to whether the necessity of how many times you need to go back into someone's residence. Attorney Fallon. Well, we're talking, if you want argument, I'm prepared to argue more. The court. I think we have to get to the point after the warrant was issued. I hear testimony that's relevant to your motion. I mean, I'm sure that the questions you're asking might be, may well be relevant at a different time, during trial, for example, but I don't see how they relate to the motion. Attorney Buting: well, I guess it's not clear to me whether he entered. That's really what I'm getting at, but I'm trying not to lead him, so it's going a little bit slower. My real question is, did he go into the Avery trailer on that night or not? The court: how is that relevant to the issue relating to multiple executions of the search warrant, which wasn't issued until a couple of days later? Attorney Buting: well, I think it relates to it because every entry makes it less necessary to go in again. Attorney Fallon: we would disagree. We're talking two conceptually different concepts. One a breeze through based on consent, and Attorney Buting: I don't know if there is or not. I mean, I haven't asked the question yet and don't have an answer on that yet. He may have never gone in. I don't know. The court: I will let you ask for a few brief background questions, but I think we should move on to the point fairly quickly once the point is issued. Attorney Buting: sure. Let me just get to the point. Question by Attorney Buting: did you, on that night, November 3rd, accompany or go into Mr. Avery's trailer? Answer: no, I didn't. Okay, so you just talked with him outside? That's correct. All right. Did you go in the next day to his trailer? No, I didn't. Okay, now moving on to Saturday, November 5th. Can you tell me what time you arrived at the Avery property? Sometime between 6 and 6:30 in the evening. Is that when you were on duty? No, yeah, I was on my day off. Okay, so you were called in? Yes. And did you meet with somebody who was assigning you tasks to do? Yes. Who was that? I believe it was Investigator Wiegert from the Calumet Sheriff's Office. Were you aware at that point that because of the appearance of a conflict of interest, because of Mr. Avery's pending $36 million lawsuit against your department, that Calumet had supposedly taken over the lead investigation? Yes, I was told that the Calumet Sheriff's Office would be the lead investigative agency, and we were to assist them. And do you know how many officers were out on the scene of the property on that day when you arrived? No, I do not. Do you have an estimate of whether it's more or less than 50? I would hazard a guess at less than 50, but I don't have an accurate head count of how many officers were out there, sir. All right. Or what about the following day? Do you have the November 6th? Do you have any information or knowledge about how many officers were there then? Again, approximately the same amount as on Saturday. All right. Now, on November 5th, after you arrived at the property, did there come a time when you entered Mr. Stephen Avery's residence to conduct a search based on a search warrant? Yes. And who were you with? A Sergeant Bill Tyson from the Calumet Sheriff's Department, Detective Remaker from our agency, Lieutenant Link from our agency, and myself. And how was it you were assigned to perform those duties? One of my additional duties or specializations in the area of criminal investigation is evidence tech, and I was acting in that capacity. Let me ask you, in your department, as patrol supervisor, are you among the top 3 individuals qualified to search Mr. Avery's trailer? I am not sure I understand the question, sir. Are you asking for the rank structure of the patrol division? No, I'm asking for your qualifications I would probably be in the top 3 choices, yes. To search a residence? Yes. Okay. And you have done that a number of times? Yes. Do you know how many, approximately? 25 or better. Okay. And you completed your search of the residence at some point around 10 o'clock that night. Is that right? Yes, sir. That sounds right. And did you come back the next day and do some more searches of the Avery property? Yes, sir. Do you know what time you started? Would have been around 8 o'clock in the morning. And did you go immediately into Mr. Avery's trailer again? I don't believe we went immediately into his trailer. I believe that we went into his garage, though. Okay, which is in close proximity to it. If I told you you were there in the garage from about 8 a.m. to 9:47 a.m., would that fit with your recollection? Yes, sir. And were you there with Detective Remaker, Lieutenant Link again? Yes. And Deputy Kaharski from Calumet? Yes, sir. And then you completed the search of the garage, is that right? Yes, sir. Were you asked to go back into Mr. Avery's trailer sometime during the noon hour, 12:30? I'm not sure of the time, but I believe, yes, we were asked to go back into Mr. Avery's trailer, Stephen Avery I'm talking about. And was that from Investigator Uyghur's direction? I don't know who exactly gave the direction to go back in there. One of the Calumet County supervisors just said, the next thing we need you to do is go back in. You know, I didn't. Every time I was directed to go into the trailer, it didn't come directly from Investigator Uyghur. Could have come from any number of supervisors that were out there. At any rate, you were directed to go back in, specifically to see some weapons, yes, sir, that were located in the bedroom of Mr. Stephen Avery? Yes, sir. And did you do that? Yes. And you went in, the same 4 officers went in on that occasion, right? Yes, sir. And you completed your search on that occasion, right? Yes, sir. Now, there's a similar request the following day, I believe, November 7th. Do you recall being asked to go into the Stephen Avery trailer again to simply get a serial number of a computer? Are we talking Monday now? Is it Monday? Yes, that would be Monday, November 7th. Yes, I do recall being asked to obtain a serial number for a computer. And you went in with Lieutenant Link and Sergeant Tyson from Calumet? I believe so, yes. And did you get the serial number? Yes, I did. And then you left on that occasion, right? Yes, sir. And then on the following day, this would be Tuesday, November 8th, did you go back into Mr. Stephen Avery's residence? Yes, I did. And if I told you 8:25 a.m., you entered and left at 12:08 p.m., would that fit with your recollection? That sounds accurate. Yes, sir. And on that occasion, you went in with who? That occasion, I believe it would have been myself, Lieutenant Link, and Deputy Dan Kaharski from Calumet County Sheriff's Office. So the 3 of you were inside the apartment for almost 4 hours? Yes, sir. On that same day, on that same day, immediately after you completed the search of Mr. Avery's trailer, you went into the garage again. Is that right? The same 3 of you? On Tuesday, are you talking about? Yes. I don't recall if we went in the garage that day or not. If I told you you entered at 12:19 p.m. and left at 12:45 p.m., and you were looking for tools and things, specific tools to match up with something, Yes, I did recall that. Okay. I didn't know if it was on Tuesday, but yes, I do recall that. And then the following day, November 9th, do you recall going back into Mr. Avery's trailer with a specific intent to look for a garage door opener, some gloves, and things of that nature? It's possible. That I don't recall. Do you recall going into his residence at all on November 9th? That would be Wednesday? Wednesday. Attorney Fallon, Your Honor, I think this question is, I know it hasn't been asked specifically of Sergeant Colburn, but I believe Lieutenant Link did indicate that he was in there that day. And I think we stipulated, if I recall, that the entry was 10:39 to 10:59 with an interruption at 10:59 and then resumed at 11:40 and ended at 11:50. I think we agreed to that yesterday, so I'm not sure what this adds to the equation. Attorney Buting: That's correct, Your Honor. I forgot that we had stipulated to that, so I can move on. The court: All right. Question by Attorney Buting: Did you have anything to do with getting the search warrant? No, sir. Did you have anything to do with the decisions of when you went into his residence or not? No, sir. Lieutenant Link outranks you, is that right? That's correct. And let me go back to this first search for a minute. The November 5th entry in the evening, when you were there from like 7:30 to 10:05, are you oriented for that? Yes, sir. Okay, you said that you are an evidence tech. Does that mean you collect evidence as well? Collect evidence, photograph evidence, locate evidence. It's all, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. And did you do so on that occasion? Yes, I did. Were you collecting swabs and things that could be trace evidence? My primary job, if you want to use that term, was probably photographing and assisting in collecting. I didn't do a lot of the swabbing on Saturday. Okay. I did assist Detective Remiker with that task, though. Okay. And you did, I believe, find some fiber evidence or something on the living room floor. Do you recall that? It's entirely possible, yes. Okay. Do you know how many times you actually collected yourself that night? Myself, personally, if you are talking about just me, I didn't, collect any items myself, bag them up and say I have this. I would locate items that I thought were of evidentiary value, and I pointed them out to Sergeant Tyson of the Calumet Sheriff's Office, and collectively we would pick those items up. Question: Okay, and by the way, did you review anything before your testimony today? I did review these two reports that I have in my hand here. The one is the Calumet County Sheriff's Department report, and the other one is our Manitowoc Sheriff's Department report that was compiled by Detective Remiker. That's the 22-page report. My report indicates this is page 1 of 24. 24. May I see the Calumet report for a minute, please? Have you reviewed both of these items? Yes, sir. Attorney Buting: May I have just a moment, Judge? I think I have seen these, but there's a couple pages that are different now. The court: Go ahead. Attorney Fallon: Your Honor, I would just observe that, given the sequencing of that report, those last pages, if that's what's an issue here, I would be surprised if they are relevant to this particular motion. I mean, they may be certainly entitled to that under discovery, but I'm not sure that it adds anything to Sergeant Colburn's testimony relative to the events of the week of November 5th. Question by Attorney Buting: All right, Lieutenant, the Manitowoc official report of the investigation in this case it's now 24 pages, right? Are you asking me to count each page, or? Well, I'm just asking you how many total pages it is. It says this is page 1 of 24. I didn't take any pages out. This is 24 of 24, so I'm assuming these to be, 24 pages. All right, how much of that report consists of reports that you wrote or dictated into this sequential system? Oh, there's only a very few entries that I personally have on here. In fact, the last couple of pages involve a report that you did very recently. Yes, sir. But it deals with an investigation that you did way back on November 3rd. Yes, sir. Particularly, it's the encounter with Mr. Avery that night that we talked about briefly at the beginning of this testimony? Yes, sir. But you only recently, within the last month or two, prepared a report of that? Only within the past month or so made an addition on this report about that, yes. And until you did that report, you had almost no personal reports in that entire Manitowoc official report, right? That is correct. And were you directed to add that report to it, this newer one? Yes. By whom? We had a pretrial conference, and I'm just using the term pretrial generically, conference in Calumet County, and all the officers were talking about what involvement they had in this case. And when I mentioned that I had initial contact with Mr. Avery on 11/3/06, it was suggested that I make an entry to this report, the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department report, about the nature of that contact. Okay, that was one of your supervisors directing you to do that? Answer, yes. Attorney Buting, thank you. I have no further questions. The court. Mr. Fallon? Attorney Fallon. Pass. We have no questions for this witness. The court. All right, you are excused. You may call your next witness. Attorney Buting. Your Honor, if you give me just a minute here, we may be able to shorten this. The court. All right, we'll take a 10-minute break at this time and then resume. Attorney Buting, thank you. Recess taken. The court. All right, Mr. Fallon, you may, or yes, Attorney Buting. Judge, at this time, we're not presenting any other evidence on the multiple entries. The court. Mr. Fallon, any witnesses for the state? Attorney Fallon. Yes, the state will be presenting witnesses.